Hello, my name's Lindsay. I'm the CEO of Customer Thermometer, the micro-survey company. As part of our work providing customer satisfaction and Net Promoter Score surveys for brands all over the world, we often get asked for our insight and guidance on what is best to ask, when is best to ask it, and what the difference is between Net Promoter, customer satisfaction, customer effort score, etc. We wanted to bring you some expert guidance and advice on this. So joining me today is Adrian Swinscoe. Welcome, Adrian. As well as writing 2 brilliant books on customer experience, Adrian writes for a number of leading publications, including Forbes, and advises leading brands on customer experience. He's seen these surveys and measures in place and operating in different companies all over the world.
Net Promoter came out of a piece of work that Fred Reichheld did when he was at Bain and Company and wrote a book called The Ultimate Question, and he posited that customer satisfaction scores were fine if you wanted a gauge for how have we done in the moment, i.e. how is your food, how is your hotel stay, kind of how is this, how is that, are you satisfied or not? So it's just basically a view in the moment. Whereas he posited actually the thing that's more interested is like we're more interested in what happens, a future state around that sort of satisfaction. So it's like, are you willing to, or are you likely to talk positively about us or negatively about it, because that'll have an impact on the future state of our business. So in terms of referrals and positive talk, or conversely the opposite as well. And so I think because CSAT is like the old favourite and NPS is like the new church.
It's definitely that evangelical thing that we see quite a lot. It's applied quite strictly in quite a number of organisations, I guess, because there's a view, isn't there, that it has some sort of tell on loyalty as well, that because of that future guidance that it gives, essentially, that you can see how loyal customers are likely to be in the future. But also that we certainly get a lot of people requesting it or surveying it because they want to benchmark.
Satisfaction is the key thing in CSAT. It's like, are you satisfied? And it's quite a binary thing. You are, you're not. Or you're kind of like, you're greatly satisfied, or you're kind of like, really dissatisfied. And it's almost a bit like you're commenting on the status quo. Not about what you're going to do with something, you're commenting on the status quo with, how do I feel about the product or the service that I've received? Or how have I felt about, my stay in a hotel or my meal in a restaurant, or whatever. Are you satisfied? Fine. So that's almost just a reflection. It's not about what you're going to do next. There's no future kind of dimension to it, which is different from Net Promoter because it's actually about promotion, and it's trying to ask you to take a future view of what's happened, with regards to, are you willing to talk about something? So there is a future dimension to it. I think that's what makes it different. One is about like, how do we do enough? And one is about, how do we do, and are you willing to go further kind of with that? Are you willing to talk about us? Are you willing to recommend us? Are you willing to promote us or not? You get such loyalists and fanatics in many ways of the NPS, is that they're applying it all over the place, and sometimes feels like they're applying it in the wrong place and also too much. And so there's almost like an emergence of a NPS-itis kind of like coming, which is it's almost a bit like too much in many ways.
Yeah, I think we see, and this probably is never anything that Fred Reichheld wanted to happen, but we definitely see that companies who perceive themselves as a Net Promoter Score company will only seek to measure that question across the business, no matter what the interaction, what the application, what has happened, even internally, that they are only able to measure the Net Promoter Score and only able to do that on a 0 to 10 scale, so ultimately an 11-point scale. And obviously it has, this tell on loyalty, and obviously it has a huge impact from a benchmark perspective, but certainly I always advise people to just go a bit carefully when it comes to applying it everywhere. One thing we definitely see is that companies who perceive themselves or set themselves up to be a Net Promoter company and who publish their Net Promoter Score publicly, or give that out as something that they want to be benchmarked against, because I think that's a big driver in NPS as well, is obviously it's one number you can benchmark against other people in your field. But one thing that we definitely see is people saying, because we measure Net Promoter, we can only ask the would you recommend us question all the way through the customer journey, and we can only measure that on an 11-point scale.
Right.
We definitely see that very strict application of Net Promoter. Sometimes, in my view, to the detriment of the customer's experience. But I've just wondered what you thought about that and whether you see that too.
Well, that becomes more about it's more about the metric than about the experience. And so you're more interested in the number that you get rather than actually what somebody's experience has been. And that's wrong, because then it's a bit like, oh, I've got this tool and I've got to figure out where to apply it. It's like a spanner. I've got a 1/4-inch spanner, now I need to look for a 1/4-inch nut, right? And it's like trying to fit things together. It just doesn't work.
I think where I've seen it work well, and it harks back to your point earlier about where Net Promoter adds the most value, right, is that where I've seen poor response rates to Net Promoter, it's been when people are using it at the very start of a process. So they've mandated a Net Promoter journey, and before somebody's even actually gone forward with that brand, they're saying, would you recommend us? And I've seen some surveys go out with and come back with a poorer response rate because people have said, well, if I do recommend you, is someone going to, or if I say I would recommend you, is somebody going to call and try and get me to recommend, even though, is someone going to say, brilliant, great, can you give us 10 of your friends that we could leverage? And that there hasn't been enough of an experience. I think where I've seen it used well, particularly in a service desk environment, is sort of a kind of regular, how are we doing kind of a thing, just allowing people to have an opportunity to give feedback. And then once they have been established as a customer of that service desk or of that brand for a while, using you've been a customer for 3 months, 6 months, we really value your custom on the basis of how we've done for you. Is it something that you'd recommend to others? And I've seen that work probably better, I'd say. Many people are asking for feedback. And a number of things. One, they're asking for feedback, and it becomes a bit of a tick list or checklist exercise. And I'm continually surprised that people are asking for feedback and not doing very much with the results, right? And not closing the loop, even though we know we need to close the loop. And you can go back to customers and go, you said this, we listened, we thought about this, we did this, and here's what happened. Thanks very much. I don't see enough of that happening on a regular basis. And I think that's shocking and appalling in a really human way. It's a bit like, it's a bit like just not calling your friends, asking for feedback, asking for their opinion again and again and again, and then just not telling them kind of what you've done with it or how things are going. So there's that sort of thing. It's almost like not doing a good job of that. But also, I think that there's another more fundamental problem, is that people are asking for measuring kind of things. They don't really understand why they're measuring stuff, because it becomes almost metric-led and they're chasing scores. And I think that's a challenge for many service and experience initiatives, is that if you ask them about what they're about, they're like going, oh, we do this and we're great at that sort of thing, but it's not really connected to the business. So I have a view is like it should be strategy first, then outcomes, and then metrics and measures that allow you to figure out, are you achieving the outcomes that you want to achieve that's going to enable your strategy? And that's how you kind of get it all connected. And I'm pretty sure it's not that way around. It's usually metrics first, and then they're thinking about how it affects kind of things, rather than it being strategy led. Yeah, I think we see that a lot. I think we see that the dashboard is the desired outcome, and that joining that to individual customer experience and rectifying and following up on that isn't necessarily what's top of mind. But if I look at the customers of ours who I know get the best feedback in terms of the highest scores and also the most engagement with their feedback surveys, it's the ones who routinely reach out, whether information coming back is good or bad, to say, we're really sorry you're unhappy, here's a replacement, or we're really pleased that you love the service. John's been given a voucher for the cinema or whatever else, and actually feeding back to customers on the rectifying actions that have been taken, they normally fall off their chairs. The customers, yeah, it is outstanding, yeah, and it's lovely to see, and it generates better engagement with the surveys that from what we see.
If somebody's reaching out to a service desk, then it's probably a problem related. They're already a customer and it's problem related. Therefore, to ask a promoter related question, sometimes that could be appropriate, particularly if you think about service recovery type of things. And how if you recover really, really well, then somebody's level of satisfaction or likelihood to promote or to talk positively about you is greater post sort of recovery. But is it really, you have to actually, is it really a promotion opportunity, or is it actually a moment of distress for a customer and you just want to fix the problem? And actually the thing that they're really interested in is fix my problem. The thing, if I think about it from a perspective of loyalty, you know, there's research shows that 90% of all loyalty is generated by 2 different points in the journey. So about 50% of it is around the point of transaction, or the buying kind of process, make me right, as it were, make me feel good about spending my money.
Purchase reinforcement.
Yeah. And then don't make me wrong, sort of thing, when things go wrong, right? So like save me. When stuff goes wrong, it's like, anyway, I know it will go wrong, kind of rescue me as quickly as you can. If you get those 2 things right, then it's like pretty much all of the loyalty. So I think promotion and positive thinkings and loyalty is wrapped up in the whole experience, not just kind of like the one bit, I think. Much of the surveying sort of stuff, I think, gets influenced by other agendas in the organisation, and people wanting to know stuff and gather their own data. And ultimately, it's really selfish. It comes across as selfish and not respectful. And customers see right through it, and they respond by not responding. This big wall of silence that happens, particularly when people go, they find the idea that single-digit response rates on surveys is acceptable. You look at it and go, oh my word, that's acceptable? When you contrast that with other kind of like people who do very, very simple, very quick, very in the moment sort of like things at the right point in time, and can get anywhere from between 50 to 75% response rates. You'll know this, you're in the business. It's the art of the possible, right? And and when you're on this scale, you're single digits, generally you're not timely, you're too long, you're lazy, self-indulgent, it's not respectful, so, you know, et cetera, and this one is exactly kind of what it says in the tin. It's easy, it's impactful, relevant, et cetera.
I definitely chime with that. I think we see the most engagement and the highest response rates from people who've put a lot of effort into when it's sent, how it feels, and the information that's followed up off the back of it. Because, you know, customers will answer something once, and if you then say, here's what we've done as a result of it, they'll answer it again and again and again. And if they're just met with the answers, you know, particularly if they've had a bad experience and they take the time to tell you, and that information disappears into a black hole and gets spat out in a report a quarter later, nobody fixes it, the customer's never going to be incentivized to do that again. So I definitely chime with that. I think we see dramatically different response rates based on the sensitivity and the creativity with which the technology is deployed.
I think the best, and they're still in the minority, are the ones that are actively closing the loop. I mean, I saw a piece of research from years ago. I can't remember who it was actually from. It was a company possibly called Customer Champions or something. And they had a piece of research that said 95% of companies claim to survey their customers, ask for feedback. And then then he goes, we collect it and we disseminate that information, then we think about it, and then we kind of action it, and then we communicate back to it. And the number goes from 95, and it descends and descends and descends and descends back to only 5% report back to customers about what they learnt, what they thought about, what they actioned, what happened, to actually kind of say, thank you for your feedback, here's what we did with it. I'm pretty sure those numbers haven't changed very much. And even though people talk about closing the loop, I don't see many companies doing very well at closing the loop and doing it on that sort of like quick basis. People talk about being agile and adaptable and everything else, but oh my God, is it slow?
I think it's very much, if you think about where surveys came from, I definitely see, when we started, the average customer feedback survey was anonymous because it was still very much seen as almost market research rather than feedback. I think the world has changed now with social media and everything. People expect it to be two-way. And yet I think most people's concept of a survey is I ask you some questions, you give me the information, and I say thanks very much, and off I go with that information and may or may not do something with it, but I've looked at some nice bar charts. And that concept of it being a two-way process, of the fact that by asking a question you're opening a communication channel, is still not necessarily widely understood.
No, not at all. And you see that by that whole not understanding about closing the loop, and it's people talk about having a relationship with their customers, and that's part of it. Some people are going to want to have that sort of relationship. Either you ask, which is great, thank you very much, and if I tell you, then you've got to show me that you value my opinion, and you've got to show me by proving to me that you've done something with that. Otherwise, I'm just not going to do it again. Like if you are a company that is dominated by, millions and millions of transactions and things, and also kind of customers, then you've got to think about scale solutions that give you that sort of insight. And that can be, when you get to a certain point, you might lose a little bit of the visceral sort of emotion in something, because you end up with sentiment analysis and picking out keywords and things, and you end up with a high level view. And my fear with something like that is you end up putting distance between you and the customer and the actual the emotion in it. And I think that becomes a challenge for big companies, and how to kind of strike that right kind of balance. Because people talk about emotions are the most important thing, how to connect with people. But if you're not really connecting with people in that sort of loop, then it's kind of hard, particularly if you're operating at scale. But then you see like smaller companies who are just going, they get a positive response. Somebody scored, so they sent out a great NPS survey, and somebody scored them a 9. And made wrote a lovely kind of comment, and they're like, within 24 hours they're on the phone going, Lindsay, thank you so much. And there's one story for one company who I think just got this absolutely nailed, is they do that, but what they've done is they've implemented it. They started to implement a system where they got senior leaders involved in calling back people that give high level. No, wait, you'll love this bit. This is the extension. The people that scored them a 9 or 10 or an NPS score with a kind of comment. So they call them up and they go, within 24 hours, they call them up, hey Lindsay, thank you so much for your thing. They really appreciate kind of your feedback and your comment. Now, I know that, say, Sarah helped you the other day. This is an insurance company. A real example of an insurance company in Australia. Say Sarah kind of helped you the other day. Now, if I was to go back and kind of like and to thank Sarah on your behalf, what would you like me to say to her? And they have a little card, and they write down the response, and then that leader walks around to find Sarah and say, Sarah, I just spoke to that customer.
Fantastic.
And the whole organisation lights up.
Yeah.
That's doing some tremendous stuff around closing the loop. I think that's off the chart. It's so simple, but it's so outside of people's comfort zones and how they respond to that. And it's how you can add that human layer impact both inside and outside. One, the customer's completely blown away because Sarah goes, hi, this is Adrian calling from such insurance group, and Sarah's like going, yeah, what are you trying to sell me? Oh, by the way, I'm the CEO, sort of thing. Yeah, what are you trying to sell me? I'm in trouble now. But they go, no, I just want to phone you to say thank you, and kind of if you were to pass on something, just blows them away. They're blown away, and that Sarah, who served, the customer, is completely blown away too.
It's a fabulous example. Yeah, really lovely. And just demonstrates to the team what good looks like as well. You bring that information back into the organisation as part of it.
And you create stories, things that people talk about.
Corporate folklore is so powerful.
All that sort of stuff, both inside and outside. You could imagine the customer kind of going around and going, "You never guess what happened to me the other day. I got this thing, did this thing, got this survey, gave them a good marks, I thought it was great. Then they called me up.
Yeah. The CEO rang me
and asked me to kind of give them a quote so you could fill in a card and give it back to give it back to the person in service just to say thank you and so reward them for a good job well done." Simple. It just takes time and a bit of effort and a bit of creativity.
I think that's a good place to draw our conversation to a close. So thank you to Adrian for that fantastic insight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, my pleasure.
I'm sure that all of our customers and prospects will have got a lot out of how they can not just adapt their frameworks, but measure more effectively and a little bit more wisely as they go forward. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, thank you.